Good morning, great people of this great nation called Nigeria. This is Morning Spring on Western Spring Television. This is the midweek installment of this program. Femi Ojo is my name, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome you today. This program will look at issues, critical issues. We speak to critical stakeholders in the Nigerian conversation. These Nigerian projects of ours, the movement. The reason, rather, why we get up every day to come here is for this great nation to have very frank and sometimes maybe not too comfortable conversations that need to be heard, things that need to be said for the Nigerian nation to grow. That is why we are here, and we are very, grateful that you have joined us this morning, 7 a.m. every weekday, looking through the front pages of different papers, headlines in the major dailies, and then conversing after that. This is Morning Spring o'clock. It's a good day. You're welcome. Good morning, Daniel.
Yeah, good morning, Femi.
Yeah, very well. How are you?
Oh, great. How do you do?
Well, how do you do as well? We are here. We are up.
Absolutely. It's another day. It's a fresh day. It's a fresh start. Beautiful Wednesday morning. It feels great to be alive.
It is.
Good morning to you, our distinguished viewers all over the world. Thank you once again for joining us on Morning Spring. This is Western Spring Television. Emeka Daniel is my name. It's always a pleasure to be here. Also, always a pleasure to know that you're there on the other side, always joining us on this program. It gives us great pleasure. So thank you once again. We do not take you for granted. Yes, there was an eventful day. We had an interesting conversation yesterday concerning the Ibom Air and Comfort Imanson saga, the incident that caused a lot of uproar in the nation.
Right.
And there's been reactions to that. So far, we've seen different people have come up to pledge support for her. For instance, a civil society organization, movement for actualization of social growth and viable development, rather, have pledged, free legal support for Comfort Imanson. And also, notably, very notably, is that of the NBA, the Nigerian Bar Association, has also pledged pro bono legal support for Comfort Imanson as a result of that incident. Then also the IG, the Inspector General of the Nigeria Police, has also ordered an investigation into the case of Kwam 1, that's King Wasiu Ayinde Marshal 1. His case came first. We had his own last week before we had that of Comfort Imanson that we jokingly call Kwam 2. So now the IG has actually ordered an investigation into Kwam 1's case. So quite interesting. Now that's why we always have to talk about these things. We can't just keep quiet. Nigerians won't keep quiet. Nigerians will speak. If they feel something is not right, if Nigerians feel there's been selective justice, then of course we have to speak out. What is good for the goose is good for the gander, like they say, even though we know all animals are equal. But some animals are more equal than others. But I think it's time for us to start making animals more equal. That's the point.
Well, when you talk about animal, you think we're in a farm, actually, but then George Orwell's Animal Farm,
Absolutely.
says it all, where all animals are equal, but some are more equal than others. And obviously, that's a systemic thing in Nigeria. We can't do like we are not aware of these. But then the thing is, one would think the Kwam 1 situation in a kind of way has simmered down until the Kwam 2 came up.
Exactly.
And, the way the whole thing was addressed and the whole thing was handled, they show a brutal force of men, those grand security personnel at the airport, and the way they were able to whisk her, rush her, bundle her out of the vehicle, out of the plane, that even got a part of her body exposed indecently and bundled to the vehicle and all these things. And, that gave that call to say, just less than a week ago, Kwam 1 had all of these things. In fact, he stopped a fully packed plane, a flight that was ready to take off.
And the security couldn't do anything.
Not that they couldn't do anything. They were begging.
They were that's true. They were begging.
Not that they were helpless. They were even begging, pleading with him, doing like this to say, oh God, please, we'll do this, we'll do that.
And they couldn't plead with another
Nothing. And, at this one was not really similar situation, but the way it was handled, and that's what gave that one. The FBA has come out to say maybe, there are things that needs to be said, and many other human rights activists as well to say, oh, come off it, what's going on here? Nobody will explain it away that maybe the lady has her own, character flaw as well. Had her own character flaw.
Everyone has, even Kwame had his own.
No, everybody does, but then what I'm saying is, not that people are excusing the bad behavior of the lady because something got that situation to that point. But then many persons will believe, apart from the videos that we have seen, something preceded that, that has been largely based on hearsay or co-travelers' account, and in which Michael Achimugu, the man in charge of here for NCA, has come out to say, please, if you're on that flight, reach out to me on this particular mail. We need to speak on this matter, and the matter should. But
again, shouldn't we have cameras in airplanes?
I think we get there. Every plane should.
Exactly.
Come on, even
camera and sound recordings. Exactly.
A plane is a high tech,
of course, so they should have
machine.
That. Yeah.
So definitely you should. But I think they will get there. Definitely, Abba. You're talking about a plane.
So
you should have many.
So we should be able to see real time.
Conversation will get there. That's what many people are calling for, to say, don't just make it to look like you are working now as an institution, as a state, when it comes to the issue of comfort emancing. What happened to Kwame, in spite of the apology is for the fans and for his behavior. There's a place for the law. So if you can excuse Kwame, please let this lady go, and then we'll go to a free range kind of system that anybody can just do anything. All I need to do is just to set my ring light and say, Nigerians, I am very sorry. It was in the heat of the moment. Forgive me, Mr. And Kwame was apologizing to the president. I wonder why is he apologizing to the president? If you need to apologize to the president, do that. If you think you have disappointed your benefactor, do that in your private capacity. But one would think you are trying to curry favor.
It wasn't really it wasn't a real apology.
It wasn't even, you didn't offend Mr. President. And if you think you have offended him in your personal capacity by disappointing, who knows, maybe it's the same Mr. President he was trying to call, because in that video, he was frantically trying to call. That was how they play. So mighty, man. Held the whole plane and was making a call, all of those things. Another one is the issue of Raye, the NYC core member who discharge certificate wasn't given, or NYC certificate rather, according to NYC, because she failed to complete her biometrics in the month of April, which many persons would say, we don't think so. And I think many persons are talking up on the matter as well to say, please, don't let us build a situation in which people will be afraid of saying obvious truth because the system will come at them. That is not the kind of, especially young people, we need to be very sensitive as a nation. If Raye has done something that deserves, she to be punished, then she should, because she's not bigger than any other person. But if it's just because somebody somewhere, an overzealous person is trying to say, we will deal with you, then it's not a good signal for the young people that are moving in droves. So how do you come out and convince those people that this is your nation? An American will talk and say anything. Yes, they love their country, but then they believe not that there is freedom of speech. They are aware. There are two different things. They are aware that they have. That's why they keep telling you, I have rights. I have rights. They are aware of their rights, and they can express it. We're not saying everybody should just be doing anyhow. It's a nation. But if the perception, and I think the federal government, the NYC, stakeholders have a point to prove with this Raye case, because many persons are watching. Absolutely. And all they need to do is just to say, that's your country. When they're in a fix of making a decision either to stay or just to even go to the unlikeliest of places, the Oman, the Jordan, the South Sudan of this world, so that they won't consider, because if you stay here and something is wrong with you, nobody has your back.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a bad place for any nation to be.
Absolutely. And she actually also apologized then. So we have someone who apologized.
So it's a season of apology.
Exactly. No, back then when she did, she apologized.
I'm just saying.
But here we have a Kwame who apologized, supposedly. But unfortunately, I actually came across a video after that apology when he was actually threatening, still threatening, and the MD of Value Jets. on that video. So why are you? Then I begin to ask myself.
Well, many persons will say that conversation happened before the apology. That it depends.
Whatever they keep, exactly,
we are not there.
It's contextual, exactly.
To say it was in the heat of the moment.
But again, we are human beings. He was calling his name on that video, saying, "I am Wasiu Ayinde. I'll do this, I'll do that." And in my mind, I'm just like, yeah, he's just a human being. You can't even guarantee the fact that you wake up the following morning. You are just a mere mortal, just a human being, just a human being. But when people start having this over-bloated impression of themselves, they feel they become so bigger than the law. It's quite unfortunate. You are just one person. You are just a human being. You are not a god. Another human being. Exactly. So people should know. People should know that. All right, and the dust is here to settle about the arrest of Aminu Waziri Tambo, former governor of Sokoto State, and an opposition figure that has been picked up to come and explain. As the police will say in Nollywood film, they will say, just come to our station, just a few things, and then you are back home. And then I think another person, an individual has been invited. Now, ordinarily, it shouldn't have mattered if actually you're an opposition figure or you're a man in power, in as much as there's something you need to explain and you are very sure of yourself. Come on, go and do that. It should be so that nobody, in fact, it will give you an opportunity, as Yorubas will say, to wear coin. You bath and then you are very okay, and people can see that you're clean. But then the issue of politicization of everything, especially, because we're in the ADC, okay, that's why they are coming for us. And then you can't just wish that away as well, because these things do happen. Allah said nobody should pull him into political conversation. He's just doing his way. If he can go after the people in the main party, the ruling party, why can't he do that with the opposition figure? But one question that, people have thrown at him is, where is the file of Ifeanyi Okowa? Absolutely. But again, Femi, another thing I'm really concerned about is the fact that why is it that the FCC can detain someone even before they've proven he's guilty? It shouldn't be so. Tambuwal is not a small fish in Nigeria. Well, so if you have allegations of corruption against someone, that's what they'll say. You shouldn't detain someone until he's alleged to have committed some fraud and all that. But again, until you prove him guilty, everyone is free to walk. That should be the standard. Right. So if you say someone has committed some crimes, fraud allegations and all that, all you have to do as EFCC is to prove it beyond reasonable doubt. Not that, this person is a suspect that has not stepped into our office, is arrested and detained. Yeah. Okay. They shouldn't just detain them arbitrarily like that. Right. So many things to talk about today. And we learned the man, fighting and gunning to retain his seat in Anambra State visited Mr. President yesterday. And one very interesting thing happened. He wore a cap, apart from his own Soludo thing. The side had a Tinubu logo there. You get to get more of that in our papers. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with those. Let's start the headline segment with the Nigerian Tribune. Nigerian Tribune for today. Ibom Air incident, NBA, Labour Party, others flay treatment of female passenger. With riders, aviation export weighing in on unruly behaviors at airports, police receive petition from NCAA on Kwam 1. IGP directs Airport Police Command to begin investigation. Okay, the police needs to be petitioned, and they have been petitioned after all. Okay, now we have these. Tambuwal released on bail as EFCC counters ADC and PDP. Tambuwal released on bail as EFCC counters ADC and the PDP. And with riders to that saying, we run non-partisan mandate commission. APC using state institutions to repress opposition, PDP alleges, and EFCC planning to investigate David Mark, others to discredit opposition, ADC claims. AFCC planning
to investigate David Mark, others to discredit opposition. ADC claims so much for, the opposition and anti-corruption fight at this time. And just above that, you have the picture of Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in his signature cap, and of course the man in Anambra State, Governor Soludo, that's Charles Soludo. He made a visit, to Asavila yesterday, and you could see both men, seeking re-election, by the way. Maybe we can safely say for one, you can infer for the other.
Absolutely.
Actually, and you can see them in a warm handshake, beamy with smile. That's President Bola Tinubu welcoming Governor Chukwuma Soludo of Anambra State at the presidential villa Abuja on Tuesday. Just like I said, maybe this picture doesn't have it. At the side of this baseball hat that he's wearing, that infinity signature cap was there, just like people will say on social media. We all know what we are doing.
Absolutely.
And below, away from that, NSC, NAPTIP, MMS move to curb human trafficking through waterways. Please do that. And NSCDC operators seal a landmark agreement. Target 400,000 metric ton sugar production annually. Take that again. NSCDC's operators seal a landmark agreement. Target 400,000 metric tons sugar production annually. And on the 18, fast walking key to longevity, cuts mortality risk by 20%. That's from a study. Fast working, some call it brisk working, key to longevity, cuts mortality risk by 20%. So almost everybody should begin to consider that now. But for some people that will say, for some Nigerians that cannot even afford transport fare, and they regularly walk every morning, that means they're already having their own exercise.
They should walk faster.
Actually, okay, walk faster. Well, maybe the state of mind has something to play on this, because if you are not having that, thing in yourself that I want to just exercise, but what you're having is, I'm going to work and I must be there on time. Well, maybe it's a win-win situation.
Exactly.
You get to work, okay, and then you have exercise.
For residents of Lagos, all my life I grew up in Lagos, so it's usual, you have to wake up very early in the morning. If you're living on the mainland, you're going to work on the island, so you're always walking fast. The rush is always there every morning.
But
it's quite natural.
I doubt if that is exercise. That's stress. All right, top strip, NSA to unfold fresh strategies to end terrorism, please. And whole of government, whole of society approach in the work. Wait to see. And Tinubu is my friend of 22 years. I have no apologies for supporting him. Soludo. Here we go. That will be all from, Nigerian Tribune having two friends of 22 years supporting themselves.
Honestly, so they've been friends for a long time.
What are friends?
A long time. Absolutely. I remember when Chukwuma Soludo became CBN president, then governor, we call him governor here in Nigeria, not president. When we became CBN governor, a lot of people raised some concerns. He was pretty young. He was 44. He was a professor of economics. And people were like, don't you think this man is too young to hold that critical position at 44? But he did well.
The young shall grow.
Well,
and he has grown.
Yeah, he did absolutely well as CBN governor. Anyway, away from the front page of the Nigerian Tribune this morning, let's take a look at the front page of the Guardian newspaper. On the Guardian newspaper this morning, outrage over Ibom Air incident as IG orders Kwamwan's probe. Outrage over Ibom Air incident as IG orders Kwamwan's probe. You'll find the story on page 6. We talked extensively about that yesterday on the show. And now the Inspector General of Police has ordered an investigation into Kwamwan's case. And this should have come earlier. You shouldn't have waited for Comfort Emanson before, knowing that you needed to investigate Kwamwan. I think we should always do the right thing. Away from that, moving to the top strip, Wadada, Soludo throw weight behind Tinubu for 2027. Wadada, Soludo throw weight behind Tinubu for 2027. Nigeria Correctional Service decries low drug supply personnel for 8,000 inmates with health needs. Nigeria Correctional Service decries low drug supply personnel for 8,000 inmates with health needs. You find a story on page 5. Talking about Nigeria Correctional Service, yesterday there was a jailbreak. Yes, a jailbreak in the medium security custodial center in Kefi, Nasarawa State. Yeah, about 16 inmates escaped, after attacking Nigeria Correctional Service staff, and 16 of them escaped. Quite unfortunate, that jailbreak. We've been having a couple of jailbreaks here. Sometimes you begin to wonder what exactly is the level of security at Nigeria's correctional, services institutions, centers. How secure are they? Because we keep having, jailbreaks here and there. Anyway, away from that, let's move to other stories still on the front page of the Guardian newspaper this morning. Reps pushing to make appeal court final judge in Gubapo dispute. Reps pushing to make appeal court final judge in Gubapo disputes. That's interesting. You find that on page 2. So if appeal court becomes the final judge, it simply means whatever they decide is final. They won't have to bother the Supreme Court anymore, because now whatever the appeal court decides, they say, don't worry, we'll go to Supreme Court. So let's see if this flies. Then I think it will be a relief for the Supreme Court in Nigeria. And right there, I'm talking about the aviation and the Kwamwan saga combined with Comfort Emansins that came up this week. We have pictures of the aviation minister. We have Festus Keyamo right there. We have Najomo. We have Egbeto Kun, the police IG. Police IG, we have Uriesi. And then we have Osigwe. All of them right there. Stakeholders concerned in institutions related to that incident. Below that, court strikes out 60 billion naira criminal suits against ex-AMCOM boss. Court strikes out 60 billion naira suits against ex-AMCOM boss. You might want to read up details of that story on page 29. Troops kill several terrorists in Borno. Failed ambush. Troops kill several terrorists in Borno. Failed ambush. You can read up that story on page 30. Lagos moves to regulate rents, curb abuse with new tenancy bill. Lagos moves to regulate rent, curb abuse with new tenancy bill. This is quite an interesting one. You might want to read up that story on page 6. Lagos, one major problem with Lagos is the population. Lagos is overpopulated, so the demand for housing is quite, greater than supply, which has driven prices up. Prices of, rents and even buying of houses have skyrocketed in Lagos. Now the government, they are trying to regulate rents. Let's see how that works. Away from that, Gani Adams faults Kwara killings, alerts on fresh crisis in Southwest. Gani Adams faults Kwara killings, alerts on fresh crisis in Southwest. You find a story on page 7. 97% unlimited land, 90%, I'll take that again, 90% untitled land rather, limiting collateral for loans, says Minister. 97% untitled land, limiting collateral for loans, says Minister. You find that story on page 5. That's one of the problems, one of the challenges we are having in Nigeria, talking about land. We have so many untitled lands, and which makes them not useful to the owners, because if the lands don't have title, if your land doesn't have a title, you can't use it as collateral for loans. So you can't do business with it. It's just sitting there. It's yours, you've paid for it, but there's no title. So it's economically not viable for you, and that's one of the challenges we are having. 97% untitled lands. Quite unfortunate. We will look more into that in the course of the program this morning. Away from that, on the front page of the Guardian newspaper this morning, below that story, we have court sentences man to death for killing roommate over door closure dispute. That's quite tragic. Court sentences man to death for killing roommate over door closure dispute. You find that story on page 8. Just door closure. Someone has killed his roommate. Quite unfortunate. And finally, from the front page of the Guardian newspaper this morning, Dangote Refinery cuts petrol ex-depot price to 820 naira. Dangote Refinery cuts petrol ex-depot price to 820 naira. You find a story on page 3. And that'll be all from the front page of the Guardian newspaper this morning.
All right, a quick one. Still talking about the dailies for today. Let's see what the Daily Times are for us. Jailbreak, 16 inmates flee Kefi prison. 5 others injured. We hope this doesn't turn to a pattern. We witnessed that under, the leadership of Muhammadu Buhari when Arabeshala was the Minister of Interior. There was a time that it came as a pattern, and I think those concerned should take a cue, and right now. And in the picture, you have the Director General of NAFDAC, Professor Muji Sola Adeyeye, in a handshake with Mr. President during her visit to President at the presidential villa in Abuja yesterday. Away from that, court gives a federal government deadline to conclude Dasuki's 10 years prosecution. 10 years, a decade of prosecution. In fact, it has taken the court to tell the federal government, conclude. In fact, they have given it, they conclude your prosecution, call all your witnesses. 10 years of prosecution in a nation. You wonder how, 10 years.
That's a season film, different seasons.
I'm telling you, different, maybe season 10, right. Court gives a federal government deadline to conclude Dasuki's 10 years prosecution, and FAN partner stakeholders import charges compliance. IGP deploys 2 more armored vehicles to Caribbean, Nigeria, Israel, seal pact on security, counterterrorism, economic cooperation. That will be all from the Daily Times.
And from the Daily Times, we take a quick look at the Punch newspaper this morning. On the Punch newspaper, health sector crisis persists despite 5.4 trillion naira World Bank loans. Health sector crisis persists despite 5.4 trillion naira World Bank loans, with a rider 11 major projects gulped $3.527 billion in 9 years, as global lender expected to approve additional $250 million loan in September. You might want to read up details of that story on page 19. Moving to the top strip. Boko Haram scare. Borno villagers flee, sleep on Cameroon streets, schools. Boko Haram scare. Borno villagers flee, sleep on Cameroon streets, schools. Quite unfortunate, you find that on page 7. I was reading a report yesterday where some people were giving their accounts how they sleep in Cameroon and come back to Nigeria in the morning. Quite unfortunate. This is a sovereign state, the state of Nigeria. Away from that, EFCC targeting David Mark after Tambuwal. Ihedioha ADC, EFCC targeting David Mark after Tambuwal. That's coming from Ihedioha ADC. Targeting, Tambuwal Ihedioha, that's coming from the ADC. Rather, you find the story on page 2. I'm talking about the EFCC allegedly targeting opposition figures in the coalition in Nigeria. Away from that, FG drops 60 billion naira fraud charges against ex-AMCOM MD. You might want to find out why on page 10. Court orders FG to close case in Dasuki's decade-old trial. You'll find a story on page 10. Right there at the middle of the page, you can see pictures of people. These are migrants trying to cross, attempting to cross the English Channel off the beach of Gravelines, northern France, into the United Kingdom. You can see the pictures right there. People are just trying to escape, and get a better life. Away from that, NBA, others condemn Ibom Air over female passengers' assault. NBA, others condemn Ibom Air over female passengers' assault. You find that on page 29. Police probe Kwam 1 over Abuja Airport misconduct. Police probe from 1 over Abuja Airport misconduct. You find that on page 2. And finally, from the front page of the Punch newspaper this morning, 30,000 naira car race net leaves, I'll say that again, 30,000 naira car race bet leaves 5 dead in Ogun. 30,000 naira car race bet leaves 5 dead in Ogun. You find the story on pages 4 and 5. A bet of 30,000 naira killing 5 people. What's the logical sense is that? That is absolutely brainless, if you ask me. That'll be all from the front page of the Punch newspaper this morning. And that also brings us to a conclusion of the newspaper review segment. We'll take a quick break, and when we return, we dive into critical discussions concerning, of course, housing deficits in Nigeria. You don't want to miss that. Join us again.